activists, legal workers, students, and organizers. We leave here with quests to now be fulfilled on far-flung battlefields. In parentheses, I use these terms in the ancient and metaphoric sense, and I hope not to be offensive to peace activists. For we have formidable enemies not unlike those in the tales of ancient days. There is a consummate evil that unleashes its dogs of war on the helpless, an enemy motivated only by insatiable greed. The miller's daughter made to spin gold, the fisherman's wife, Midas, all with no thought of consequences. In this enemy there is no love of the land or the creatures that live there, no compassion for the people. This enemy will destroy the air we breathe and the water we drink, as long as the dollars keep filling up their money boxes.
We now resume our everyday lives, but we have been changed once again, with and for our quest. And like Hippolyta and her Amazons, like David going forth to meet Goliath, like Beowulf, the dragon slayer, like Queen Zenobia who made war on the Romans, like Sir Galahad seeking the Holy Grail. And modern heroes, dare I mention, Poe and Mao and Lenin, Fidel and Nelson Mandela, and John Brown, Che Guevara, who reminds us, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love. Our quests like theirs are to shape the very foundations of the continents. We go out to stop police brutality, to rescue the imprisoned, to change the rules for those who have never even been able to get to the starting line, much less finish or run the race because of color, physical condition, gender, mental impairment. We go forth to preserve the air and land and water and sky and all the beasts that crawl and fly. We go forth to safeguard the right to speak and write, to join, to learn, to rest safe at home, to be secure, fed, healthy, sheltered, loved and loving, to be at peace with one's identity. Until we meet again, our quests are formidable. We have in Washington a poisonous government that spreads its venom to the body politic in all corners of the globe. We have war, big war in Iraq, big war in Afghanistan, smaller wars in Colombia, Central Africa, Southeast Asia. We have detainees and political prisoners at home, and now looming in 2004, we have those Democratic and Republican conventions, and then an election, with the corporate media ready to hype the results and drown out the righteous protests. But there are, in all of the towns and cities we return to, the people, our people, the day in, day out grassroots organizers, and they are busy coalition building, carrying out protests and actions against powers so vast and evil that our collective will must be to defend the people in this vanguard, to enable them to recruit and prepare fresh troops. And there are also individual quests. I hope and believe that I will be in Birmingham next year, that our movement, our righteous movement, will defend me, and that our victory for the people, of the people, and by the people will restore the defenders, and this one in particular, to the front lines of the battle. So the long year 2004 stretches out until we meet again. We have no crystal ball, but we have history, and that history teaches us. As we go forth, we learn from all those who have struggled before us. A fellow traveler of an earlier time, a communist and a Jew, Bertolt Brecht, wrote as his last poem what has become my credo, and I give it to you. And I always thought, the very simplest words must be enough. When I say what things are like, everyone's heart must be torn to shreds. That you'll go down if you don't stand up for yourself. Surely you you see that. Go forth and do justice.
This was the speech that kept me going all of these years. And when she did get out with your help, when she got out with your help, when times got very tough, in the evening I would say, Lynn, get that speech out. And she would hesitate. And then she would finally start. I could never get to the end without tears, because it is as true today as it was the day she wrote it and spoke it. And the job she has given us is still there to be done. And I, like Glen, am totally convinced that we, together, will get that job done. Thank you. Someone was supposed to step forward and introduce Glen Ford, our next speaker. But Glen, as I look around, you need no introduction. Everyone has heard those stinging words against the past administration that we had under I can't even say Barack Obama. And he spoke out when most people were afraid to speak truth to power. And here he is with us, continuing to speak truth to these corrupt governments we have. Glen Ford, Black Attendant Report.
I had to write these words down so that I get them right for Lynne. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to all the friends and comrades of Lynne Stewart. Power to y'all. On this occasion, I think of this as a continuation of an historical process. Lynne was a remarkable, singular force in the struggle for freedom, both at the elemental level, and that means the nuts and the bolts of setting her clients free, and in the larger sense of defining what freedom is and what freedom is not in the United States. That is the cutting edge. It's the political edge of the law, and that's where you would find Lynne Stewart. We talk about bourgeois legality because the law is what the bourgeoisie say the law is at any given time in history. Lynne probed the limits of bourgeois legality, first and foremost because that is the obligation of every lawyer, according to the bourgeoisie's own rules. A lawyer is obligated to provide the best and most zealous defense to her client. A people's lawyer does not test the limits of the law for sport, and she doesn't do it as some kind of exercise. She does so because she owes it to her client to do battle with the state on his behalf. And in the process of doing battle with the state, she forces the state to define its own relationship to its own laws. She forces the state to show whether or not the state, is actually the lawless and arbitrary and capricious actor in the scheme of things. Every lawyer has this obligation, but very few of them exercise that obligation on behalf of the poor and on behalf of the dispossessed. and even fewer do so with a strategic vision, that is, with a political vision to serve humanity as a whole. Lynne Stewart was one of those very, very few. There was nothing bourgeois about Lynne Stewart, and she had no reverence for what passes for legality in this bastion of rule by the moneyed classes. But they, the moneyed classes, have based their legitimacy on a body of written laws and legal precedents, and her legal and political mission was to work those laws to the benefit of her clients and also for the greater good. It is the bourgeoisie, through their police and their prosecutors and their judges, whose legitimacy is tested when they're confronted by a people's lawyer like Lynne Stewart. Lynne Stewart never failed her clients, and she never failed us. It is the rulers who decided that there was no longer any place in bourgeois legality for the zealous defender of the people's rights. So they outlawed the lawyer, literally outlawed the lawyer, by sending Lynne Stewart to prison, simply for conscientiously fulfilling her obligation to her client. But they did not diminish her. She was the one who upheld the letter and the spirit of their laws and their canon of ethics. They were the ones who trashed the adversarial system of justice at its most fundamental level by criminalizing the defense lawyers. It was not, I think, Lynne Stewart's intention to strip bourgeois legality down to its raw, class, and race-based, naked 21st century reality. I don't think that she welcomed the prospect. I know she didn't welcome the prospect of dying of cancer in prison, and we were all blessed that her eventual release allowed her to spend more time out here with us. But she did recognize that her imprisonment and her disbarment were part of an historical process, an ongoing, horrific process, a process of disintegration of bourgeois legality in the terminal stages of capitalism. In the nakedness of oppression, the people will ultimately see the truth, and the truth will set you free if you act on it. Lynne acted on her revolutionary truths every day of her wondrous life, and she expects us to do the same. Power to the people.
All right, now we've got some orchestration to do. So our wonderful sign carriers who volunteered, if you could go to stage left. Sign carriers led by Cleo, our unicorn, over there. And I just want to bring up, while they're gathering, and while we will be accompanied by our master drummer, whose special thanks to Brother Atiba, who's truly one of the master musicians of the revolutionary people's movement. Thanks. And Ruth Newstetter, she has something to present to you, so while we're gathering, Ruth, this is something for the family. So Ralph, why don't you come up here? And I should say that Ruth Newstetter is not only a wonderful artist, but has been a correspondent at Still the People's radio station. We got to make it so, WBAI. Thank you, Ruth.
I'm so happy to be here. Many years ago, Lynne and Ralph and I were at a WBAI event, and I wanted to take a picture of her so I could make a painting. And I did, and the painting is here. That's Lynn. That's how she came across to me, that's for sure, at that time. And I want Ralph and his family to have the painting in their home. Thank you.
And we want to, as we get ready, I just want to acknowledge the people who committed to putting this together. And please stand, and of course, particularly Sister Betty, Ellen, Leilani, who put the posters, Sarah, Dolores, Bob Lederer. Folks, just stand up and thank you for your input. And Dolores, tell us about the food. Tell us.
I hope all of you were able to get a program. We ran off a few hundred, but we want to thank Lynne, those of you who do have the program. She's sitting right over there. Lynne designed the program for us, and she worked with us for weeks on this. We hounded her, we called her, we emailed her 100 times a day. Okay, Lynne, sing. Oh yeah, we also, we want to thank the people who bought the refreshments for us. You know, you all partook of it, I hope. And they're here as well.
And we also have Brother Don DeBar, and I think I saw Errol Maitland there doing some of our streaming, thanks. And Brother Ernesto, who's doing all of our technical work, who will probably never speak to us again. And Jess Sundin, of course, for everything. So I think we've got it going. We've got to build up some rhythm here. And okay. So I'm looking for a gentleman in a yellow sweatshirt with a red, green, and black emblem on it that stands for one of the most important grassroots organizations in the country, and the kind of organizations we have to be building in our neighborhoods. And I think the name is the People's Organization for Progress, Larry Ham.
Long live Lynne Stewart. 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 Brothers and sisters, first of all, I want to express my deepest sympathies and love to Ralph and the family of Lynn, and Ralph Pointer, who is a great freedom fighter in his own right. Father Lucas, I think this is the first time, have we met before? I hear you on WBAI all the time. Give Father Lucas a hand. I want to apologize to everyone that's here for a very serious occasion such as this. I would come to you not dressed this casually. I would have a suit on, and I would have prepared remarks. But unfortunately, I didn't have time to do that this morning, Ralph. I was with about 1,000 people in Trenton, New Jersey, marching for science today. Marching for science this morning. So I'm coming to you straight from the demonstration in Trenton, which was one of many, many, many demonstrations held throughout the country and around the world. When someone who is very dear to us, someone that we love, when they leave us, many times it's difficult for us to even feel like they're gone. It's hard to grapple with the fact that they have gone and they will no longer be with us. But that's how you know when someone has lived their life in such a way that it has a profound impact on you. And I tell you this, when the people who put Lynn in jail are dead, when their bones have turned to dust, the memory of Lynne Stewart will live on forever. Lynn was a people's lawyer. What does that mean? She was a brilliant law student. She could have come out of law school and probably ended up working in one of these Fortune 500 palaces on Park Avenue, on Lexington, on Fifth Avenue. She could have written her own salary ticket, but she didn't choose that path. She didn't choose the path of wealth and comfort and fame. She chose to be a servant of the people. She chose to be a lawyer who would put her skill and her ability in the service of the people. She didn't defend Monsanto. She didn't defend Wells Fargo. She didn't defend Citibank. She didn't defend the wealthy and the powerful. She defended our freedom fighters and the people who stand up and fight for justice. Those are the people that she defended. She doesn't leave wealth behind. She doesn't leave behind an inheritance that can go down even to her grandchildren. She doesn't leave a Nobel Peace Prize behind. She doesn't have any of those things. But what she leaves behind is greater than all of Trump's wealth, and that is a committed life. She leaves a legacy of struggle behind. I can remember so often hearing Lynne's voice come through the radio, Chris, on WBAI. And I could see and I could hear what a brilliant attorney she was. What courage, what tenacity she had. I just wish we had her in New Jersey. So brilliant, so tenacious, able to defend those that society would condemn even before they got to the courtroom. And then I remember that day that Glen referred to. I remember that day when they said that Lynne was going to have to go to jail. And when they sentenced her, it wasn't a jail sentence, brothers and sisters. When they sentenced her, it was a de facto death sentence. But she, like Daniel, and she, like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, she, like Nelson Mandela, did not die in jail. She walked out and came and joined the struggle with us. She doesn't leave behind a great wealth, but she leaves us behind. And the greatest tribute that we could give to Lynne Stewart would be to put aside all of our differences, our ideological differences, our sectarian differences, our personal differences. Put those differences aside and unite and build a movement, a revolutionary movement to bring down this capitalist and racist system. That would be the greatest tribute that we could give to Lynne Stewart. And I tell you, and I finish on this, another way that we can pay tribute to Lynne is to support and uphold the other people's lawyers who are among us, because they struggle alone. It's difficult being an attorney like Lynne Stewart. It's difficult being a people's lawyer. And sometimes some become great celebrities and they have crowds and they have people that heap praise on them and sometimes even give resources to help them in their work. But there are many who work and do not get the support and recognition that they need, and we, in Lynne's name, need to support those who in fact carry on their work like Lynne Stewart. And lastly, I don't know if this has already been done, but I offer up a humble suggestion. And that is this, and if I'm late, tell me I'm late. Late Larry all the time. But I would say that another way that we could pay tribute to Lynne is establish a scholarship fund to help those law students that want to be people's lawyers like Lynne Stewart. Thank you very much. Power to the people. Long live Lynne Stewart. Power to the people.
Lynne once said, "I feel like the canary in the coal mine." And I'd like to introduce another miner, a miner of words, a journalist who is in that same coal mine. Chris Hedges, will you give it?
Those who spend a lifetime resisting are long-distance revolutionaries are often couples. I discovered this in wartime. For to resist day after day, month after month, year after year, in a nation convulsed by the poisons of nationalism, racism, and militarism is lonely, tiring, and dangerous. It is to be rejected and demonized by the dominant culture. A celebration of the life of Lynne Stewart is a celebration of the life of Ralph Poynter and a celebration of their family. Lynne would never have been Lynne without Ralph, and Ralph would never have been Ralph without Lynne. And the love that sustained them was the love they turned with such ferocity outwards on a loveless world of injustice, racism, poverty, capitalist exploitation, and state violence. And there are no shortage of agents of this loveless world who were knocked off balance when hit by the blast furnace of Lynne Stewart and Ralph Poynter. There is nothing moral about condemning a crime of history, although there are no shortage of individuals and institutions that have claimed the mantle of morality by rooting themselves in an atrocity of the past to ignore the atrocities of the present. The moral life is attained by condemning and fighting the crimes of the present, which, as we know from the mutations of white supremacy, is usually the newest iteration of the crime of history dressed up in new clothing. Lynne was for this reason an exemplar of what it means to live the moral life. What drives this life? Knowledge, certainly, an understanding of systems of oppression and how they work, courage, tenacity, anger. For how can you walk out of the American inner cities and the American gulags and not be angry? But I would say the heart of this life is a deep and profound capacity for empathy, the sadness and distress that comes when you see people suffer. Lynne spoke about her own epiphany as a nice, white, middle-class girl from Queens who went to work as a librarian in 1962 in Harlem, which, although Queens was 5 miles away, she said she did not know existed. And in the Harlem school system, her epiphany was triggered by the cruelty to children. And there was someone else in that school incensed by this cruelty, the teacher and union organizer across the hall from the school library, Ralph Poynter, whose alacrity at making common cause with Lynne was probably aided, as Lynne said, by the fact that at that time her skirt was as short as her hair was long. Lynne wrote a letter to the parents of the school that said, "You're constantly told that your children can't learn. Your children doesn't learn. But what you don't know is every other child's mother is being told the same thing, and actually all these children can learn, but you're caught up in the system. And Ralph distributed the letter in front of the school and called for a meeting, and Ralph, not for the first time, was fired. And that triggered their fight for community schools. There may have been 6 kids to support, and Lynne may at the time have been the only wage earner. But when she said to Ralph she wanted to go to law school, Ralph said, "Well, I guess you better go then." And she went. To, as she said, fight government on behalf of someone who didn't really have the tools or wherewithal to do that, and to be able to go home and look at myself in the mirror. The movements in the 1960s briefly created a better legal system, not a fair one, but not one so overtly prejudiced against the poor. A right to an attorney, the dismissal of evidence in an illegal search, but the elites steadily chipped away at these gains until they were once again wiped out, until once again a cop's word became law, even when it was obviously a lie. Lynne kept fighting, not winning so much anymore, but fighting. She defended the poor. She defended radicals. She defended all those the state were trying to crush and erase. And then she took the case of Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, who, and I speak now as the former Middle East bureau chief for the New York Times, had nothing to do with the 1993 attacks on the World Trade Center. But who was demonized as the face of terror by the government and the press. And in the end, the state not only lynched the sheikh whose sentencing saw Lynne weep in court, but lynched Lynne too. Not so much for defending the sheikh, but for spending years defending people like Larry Davis, a young black man who acted in his own self-defense against armed police. And she too was prosecuted in a show trial. A trial where she was open and vocal about her friendship with Mumia Abu-Jamal, because decent people do not deny their friends. And was disbarred and sent to prison. And then Lynne's family organized to shame the state to release her. To resist radical evil is to endure a life that by the standards of the wider society is a failure. It is to defy injustice at the cost of your career, your reputation, your financial solvency, and at times your life. It is to be a lifelong heretic. And perhaps this is the most important point. It is to accept that the dominant culture, even though liberal elites, will push you to the margins and attempt to discredit not only what you do, but also your character. For when you stand, as Lynne Stewart did, with the oppressed, you are treated like the oppressed. The great radical priest Daniel Berrigan told me that the essence of faith is the belief that the good draws to it the good. The Buddhists call this karma, but he said he did not know where it went. He trusted that it went somewhere. And we are called to do the good, or at least the good so far as we can determine it, and then let it go. I saw in the conflicts I covered as a war correspondent the power of this faith, which lies outside any religious or philosophical creed. This faith is what Václav Havel called, in his essay, The Power of the Powerless, living in truth. A life spent living in truth exposes the corruption, lies, and deceit of the state. It is a refusal to be part of the charade. And I saw how when the great resistors are taken from us, their nobility and courage shine on in the darkness, calling all of us to save ourselves, to save each other, and to save our souls. There will come a moment in your life when you will face your own fear. You will be forced to choose between standing with the oppressed or remaining silent. And you will think of Lynne, and she will be there. Her presence, her spirit, and you will do what is right because you cannot betray her. Because the cruelty around you demands that you respond no matter what the cost. And in the Christian faith, we call this resurrection. Thank you.
See, the kind of people that we have here today to honor Sister Lynne can easily follow because the sentiment and the soul and the energy is there amongst every single person here.